I'm the philosophical bachelor, and today I'm going to talk about the observer effect. The observer effect is a phenomenon in physics where just from the act of observation, the experimental results are changed. It is the disturbance of an observed system by the act of observation. The instruments used to measure the data, by necessity, alter the state of what they measure in some way. I want to use this effect as an analogy of how human beings as actors modify the situation since we, like the observer, insert ourselves into the space of action, hence changing the space of action. The elements in that space react to us as we react to them. Some examples to make clear what I'm saying. If the police is seen to be always hostile towards people, then it is no surprise if people go out of their way to avoid anyone in a uniform that even vaguely resembles the uniform of a policeman. People wearing headphones may be telling others not to talk to them, hence possibly dampening the atmosphere in the room. In a workplace, if a co-worker always dominates a discussion, people might come to expect it of them, or react in undesired ways such as withdraw from the discussion, or not even want to join the discussion. Or they may like it. It depends. We need to be self-reflexive to realize that we modify the atmosphere, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a negative way. If we are unconscious enough of the situation, we may misunderstand the situation and wonder why people are responding the way they are. We also then have responsibility once we reflected on the situation. Since we recognize that we change the mood, the atmosphere or the dynamics of a situation, we have to consider if we now intentionally want it to be that way. We see this phenomenon also in racial stereotypes, where one group which has been historically dominated and enslaved are considered as lazy and dumb. But if they have been so severely set back, then when they do not do well in school, for instance, how can we condemn them when we have failed to understand the roots of their perceived lack of ability? Or a parent who has been overly protective of their child. How then can that parent suddenly expect the child to make difficult decisions when all along the parent had been making the decision for the child, even in the smallest of issues? However, the effects need not be negative. In understanding this dynamic of the observer effect, we can act to minimize the effects of the intrusive measuring devices. For instance, we use voltmeters that themselves will only take a little energy to show us how much voltage is in the circuit. Or we may power the instruments separately instead of using the power from the circuit to power also the measuring device. It all depends how sensitive the experimental setup is to the measuring devices and the requirements of the measuring devices. If a patient has already lost a great deal of blood, then drawing out entire test tubes of blood to test for diseases might be the thing that finally kills the person. If, however, the patient is healthy, then drawing out 1 or 2 test tubes is like throwing a cup of water into the sea. The change will be undetectable. So we need to read the situation, which can be something rather limited, like a workplace in my example of the dominant co-worker, or something larger, like our society in my example of racial stereotypes and overly protective parents. Understand how we may interfere in the dynamics, and then act. If we are the dominant co-worker, then we may need to restrain ourselves. If we are the privileged one, then we may need to try to understand the situation of others by being more generous in understanding why the things are the way that they are, and not be too quick to judge. If we are the protective parent, then we need to understand that our aim is to prepare the child for the rigors of life, and so need to train them to think and act for themselves responsibly. To do otherwise would give rise to undesired outcomes, detrimental to the others, but also to ourselves. So we have responsibility also. We too are culpable. Thank you.